We're going to add one more example of how water is managed in New Zealand by looking at the merits of local government ownership and control. So please welcome the Mayor of the Waipa District Council, Jim Mylchreest.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm delighted to be presenting today on the merits of local government ownership and control of water in New Zealand. I do, however, recognise that many here today could not comprehend how Waipa District voted against the formation of a Three Waters CCO with Waikato District and Hamilton City Councils for the delivery of those services. What part of the forecast saving by Cranley of $27 million over the next decade was unattractive to us? Was the decision even legal when considering the purpose of local government to provide local infrastructure in the most cost-effective way for households and businesses? Firstly, a little bit about myself, I suppose, in terms of a real advocate for localism. I'm a qualified environmental health officer, a town planner, with more than 45 years' experience in local government as a practitioner, senior manager, and for the past 6 years, Mayor of Waipa District. And I'd have to add there, as much as it's to the chagrin of the media at the moment, I've gone in on one of the 6 councils that's gone in unopposed for the next 3 years. But along with all other mayors throughout the country, we believe that our individual districts or cities are the best and are unashamedly parochial. This pride in our communities leads to a healthy competitive approach and desire to provide the greatest facilities for our residents. On the other hand, we all hate comparative league tables unless, of course, we're at the top. To achieve the optimum well-being for our communities, there is a strong view supporting localism to place the design and delivery of public services in the hands of the communities that they serve. This includes the basic 3 water services, which are inextricably linked to that well-being, and most other functions undertaken by local government. For those not directly involved, it is difficult to understand the community emotion and desire to retain ownership and management of the 3 water infrastructure, even when the technical advice is that there could be significant savings in alternative delivery models. Let's face it, the majority of the population have spent the last 100 years or more complaining that their rates are too high. I believe that the root cause of the resistance is the centralisation of works and services away from the communities they serve on the basis of efficiencies without considering the impact on customers. These services are then generally arranged in single-purpose silos within a large government department or organisation without local knowledge of the communities that they are supposed to serve. There is also a strongly held view that bigger is not necessarily better and the theoretical savings will not eventuate. There is a view that New Zealand is too small to need a lower tier of local government and that local government is inefficient or even incompetent and leads to wasteful duplication of services. This view is routinely publicly supported by central government that criticises the quantum of rates, poor asset management and lack of long-term planning. I would suggest that if the same level of scrutiny was applied to central government agencies on an annual basis, they would be on the lower end of those league tables. Local government has grown out of a desire by communities to improve their well-being from the original single-purpose boards such as roads boards, rabbits and drainage boards, etc., to now a collection of services and facilities, including the 3 Waters networks. This infrastructure and facilities are largely property related and have been funded by those communities through property taxes in the form of rates and user charges. That's with the notable exception of the roading network. Local government politicians are in fact scrutinised and held to account by their electorate far more than our central government counterparts in an MMP environment where significant numbers of members of parliament have not been elected by their constituents. Decisions on the need and scale of services have been made by local people, taking account of the views of their communities and in particular their ability to pay. The motivation was improved well-being and public health outcomes and not economic growth. In fact, formerly businesses were only provided these services if there was a surplus capacity in the networks. Many industries, and particularly wet industries, were required to provide their own water and effluent disposal requirements. We now all acknowledge that these services are critical for the growth and economic well-being of the nation, and it is imperative that these assets are maintained, managed and expanded to meet the current and future needs. This does not mean that they should be removed from territorial authority control if there is indeed an economic imperative outside of the individual territorial authority area. Then there needs to be alternative funding arrangements. A critical issue that appears to be overlooked is that local communities own these assets and they've been built by them over many generations. Why would those communities voluntarily give up those assets or become minority shareholders in council-controlled organisations where the control and philosophical perspectives of the partners differ significantly from their own? These community assets are no different from other amenities such as libraries, swimming pools, museums, parks and reserves, etc., that have been bought and paid for by the community. While significant improvements have been made in most communities, there are undoubtedly challenges in the future due to increasing environmental standards, underfunding of depreciation of existing assets, and significant growth in some localities and population decline in others. These challenges are being seen by some as an opportunity to either remove the delivery of these services from local government or at the very least reduce the number of councils in the belief that increased scale will provide the necessary improvements in efficiencies and effectiveness. Scale alone is not the magic bullet, as it's still the same people that will have to pay. In Waipa's case, with a population of just over 50,000, we have similar and slightly lower water and sewerage charges than Watercare servicing Auckland City. If scale is the important determinant, you would expect Watercare charges to be significantly less. The retention of the provision of Three Waters infrastructure is a critical component of most territorial authorities, as it supports the critical mass for the efficient functioning of that organisation. It is also an integral part of the long-term planning for the district, and in particular, the development of industrial and residential expansion and emergency planning and response. The removal of 25 to 30% of that critical mass would seriously call into question the need for local government. And I can see many of the engineers amongst you thinking that this is in fact the outcome you would like to see, with a focus on technical and hopefully more cost-effective options. I can assure you though that through many years of community consultation, this is not what communities want. In a district with two similar sized towns approximately 20 minutes apart, for example, you would think a swimming pool in one town and a library in the other would be sufficient. Well, that's absolutely wrong. The community wants facilities that they can use in close proximity to their homes. Why did Waipa resolve not to form a Three Waters CCO with Hamilton City when, from all external agencies or as individual perspectives, the technical and financial information indicated that it was the most cost-effective solution, and in fact there was a legal responsibility to do so? Simply, neither the council nor the community had confidence in the accuracy of those figures or the predicted savings. There was an unease that the formation of a CCO was likely to be a precursor to further amalgamations of territorial boundaries. There was asymmetry between the three territorial authorities, which would have led to inequitable funding arrangements. For example, the extreme growth pressures from Auckland expansion on communities within Waikato District, the high debt levels within Hamilton City, and their reluctance to introduce water metering to equitably control demand and charging. Waipa had a 10-year plan that demonstrated provision had been made for $1.26 billion to run our district, which would result in an average annual rate increase of 2.2% over this period. This included $190 million for the Three Waters growth and $397 million for asset management of these services. Waipa would have become a minority shareholder with reduced influence. Council recognises that there are challenges in the delivery of three water services in a number of territorial areas, and there may be advantages in sharing resources, particularly with regard to technically qualified staff and strategic planning. But this may not necessarily require the formation of a CCO or further reorganisation of those boundaries. Council is fully supportive of an independent regulatory body to set the monitoring and improve standards for all three waters. It is clearly Public Health 101 that all public water supplies should be adequately treated, including residual disinfection. The fact that we will still have large supplies in New Zealand effectively unprotected is patently unacceptable in a first world country, and the Havelock North outbreak of Campylobacter could so easily have been avoided. And thank you very much. I see my time is up. 32 seconds over. Sorry, Nadine.